Alright, I'm going to show you how to make a graph for linear data. So I've provided you this graphing Excel file in Blackboard, so download that to your computer and then open it. Okay, so this is what it is. You may have to click enable editing. I didn't. There's a place for you to put your name and email. And I've just made up some data for an object that is dropped from REST. So here's the time in seconds. I've got error bars for that, the speed in meters per second, and then errors for that as well. So I'm going to go through the process of showing you how to create a graph in Excel. So first of all, you have to select your data. So this data, the first column, should be what goes on the horizontal axis. And then if you hold down the control button on your keyboard and then select your Y data, there's your X and Y data. So then you'll come up here to insert, and then you're going to come over here to charts and select this one right here, the scatter chart. No lines connecting the data points. Okay, and I'm just going to move that over here, resize it a little bit. Okay, so this chart has the data, but it needs a few things. First of all, this chart title, you want to give it a meaningful title. Since I have speed versus time, I'll just go ahead and call it that, speed versus time. Okay. The axes should be labeled as well, and you can do that by clicking on this plus icon right here. And so just axis titles, and then you'll see you have these text boxes that you can just like click on until it highlights everything, and then just type in the title. So for this is the vertical axis, so in my case it's going to be speed, and I want to put in parentheses what the units are. You should always include your units. And I'll do the same thing down here. I'll just click on this and I'll say time, and that's in seconds, like that. Okay, so there's a title and my axes titles. Alright, now the other things that I want are a trend line. So I'm going to come up here to plus and scroll down here to trend line. I won't check on it right here. I'm just going to click on this arrow right here and go down to more options. And then you may have to click on this if it doesn't come up automatically. But you want to make sure that it's linear, and then we're going to display the equation, and I also want the r-square value. So that makes this little text box over here with that information. So we can move it and highlight it, and you can click on this to change the font size. You can make it bold just so it's easier to read. Okay, and that's fine. If it works, you should be able to right click on the text box and then go down to format trendline label, and there's options here where it says scientific, and you can specify the number of decimal places, but for some reason that doesn't seem to be working for me. So if you can, great. If not, oh well. What else do we need? So we need error bars. Okay, so how are we going to do error bars? So click on the data again, and then click on the plus sign, and then you got error bars. Again, I'm going to click on this arrow and go down to more options. So since I have these error bars, they may all be the same. If that's the case, then you can just put in a fixed value. But if you have different values, you can come down here and do custom and say specify value. And so let's see, I'm doing the vertical error bars. That's my speed. So I'm going to select these for the upward values and for the downward values. Okay, so you can just click on those and then select what you want. Okay, in this case it's the same, so I'll just hit OK, and you can see that's updated the error bars. Now if I want to switch over to the horizontal ones, I can just click on one of these horizontal ones and you'll see it switches to horizontal error bars. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and do custom and do the same thing. Just highlight the error bar values that way. Okay, so there we are. We're done with the graph. Now, an important part of measurement is uncertainty. So one of the things that we're looking for here with this linear fit is the slope, which in this case you can see is like 9.7739. Okay. There should be some uncertainty with that, and unfortunately Excel doesn't just give that to you. You have to do a little bit extra to get that. So just anywhere you can, just click in a cell. I'm going to do it right here because I've got some info here. And then click in a cell and then type equals LINEST and then open parentheses. And then it's kind of prompting you what you should put in. We're going to do known y's, so that these are my y values, and then I have to hit comma, and then it'll go to known x's, and that's my known x's. And then comma, and you got two options. You can set the y-intercept to be 0, or let it calculate it normally. If you do true, it'll calculate the y-intercept normally, so I'm going to do that. And then the second option here is to return some additional regression numbers, which I'll get to in a second. So I want that to be true as well. Close parentheses and then just hit enter. Okay, and then what it'll do is it'll create this kind of table here. And let me just tell you what the entries in this table are. The top left corner is your slope. You can see it's exactly the same number as this. The top right corner is your y-intercept, and you can see that's exactly this number right here. This number right below your slope is the uncertainty in your slope. So if I wanted to say what the slope was, I could come over here and say, okay, the slope is 9.773897, and then plus or minus 0.2. And really I should just have one sig fig on this, so we'll just say 0.2, and then that basically means that this number, I'm just going to round it to one decimal place, so I'll say 9.8. Okay, so my slope is 9.8 plus or minus 0.2. And you could do basically the same thing for your y-intercept if you wanted to do that. You could say your y-intercept is negative 2.201, however many you want to do. And then you say, okay, only to one sig fig for this, we'll say 0.8. So that basically means I should only have one decimal place on this as well, so we'll say minus 2.2. Okay, so that's my y-intercept. And then this number right here is your r-square value, which is the same as this right here. And the r-square value is just an indication of how well your data is explained by your fit line. So the closer it is to 1, the better. So, you know, the fact that this is a number pretty close to 1 is a pretty good indication that this data is actually well represented by being a straight line. And I've blacked out some of these other numbers because they're not important. You don't need to pay attention to them at all. Okay, so that should be it. Over here is kind of my rubric for how I'm going to grade your graphs. You know, so 2 points for most things. And so there you're aware of it. Okay.